So it seems like day by day we are seeing another issue come out with the condo crisis here in the state of Florida.
Comes from the Treasure Coast, where nearly a dozen people who live in the Villa del Sol condos in Jensen Beach have been forced to leave their homes because the condo complex failed an inspection.
Every day we are seeing either a condo being evacuated or something big coming out or some crazy assessment story down the line. I've talked about this in 3 or 4 videos now, and I'm going to keep after it because so many people need to know if you're going to buy a condo, you own a condo, or something to do with a condo, you need to know that there are major issues in the condo market in the state of Florida. And let me tell you, this is going to get bigger. This is going to go to other states, as you will find out in this video.
The buildings had been undergoing a required inspection when they found structural deficiencies that they believe make the buildings unsafe.
As a real estate agent, as a person that goes in and out of these condos, lives around these condos in the state of Florida, I am blowing the horn to make sure that everybody knows that some of these are going to have major problems, major assessments, and they're going to be a major problem in the state of Florida for the politicians and for the residents.
This dirt right here, that's in front of this building. The dirt is in front of this building. In fact, dirt like this is in front of all the buildings around here. It's all part of the inspection that's been going on. This was the excavation part of that inspection. And once they did the excavation, that's when they found those structural deficiency, and that's when they decided all of these buildings needed to be evacuated.
As you can see in this video, Jensen Beach has got its hands full with this one. I've been saying over and over again as these SIR studies come out, these structural integrity surveys, studies, they're going to find things. Most of these buildings were built back in the day when the codes were different. You don't know how they mix the concrete. You don't know what the water, dew points, and everything that has to do with mixing concrete was back then. You don't know the rebar they used. You don't know a lot of things about some of these structures. And now that people are crawling underneath them and digging out the foundations, they're finding out serious issues. Look, concrete cracks, it expands, it can be porous, it can do a lot of things. And sometimes it will just start to crumble. And it's happening. In these videos, we are seeing these concrete structures start to break apart.
But that's the decision they felt they had to make. The red tags went up and the residents were given only a few hours to move out.
My wife does dialysis. My son's starting a new school Monday. I work from home. And we have pets.
In the long run, it's all about the safety and the welfare of these unit owners.
The property manager sent an email to residents in 3 buildings saying they had to evacuate.
Now, these are small structures. What if they're 40 stories high? What if they're 50 stories high? And like I told you in my last condo video, talked to a guy that was involved with a deal that the building was off by 4 feet at the top. It had twisted and was leaning 4 feet over the scope of 40 or 50 stories.
Overwhelmed, like how are we going to do this financially? I mean, as far as I know, we still have to make payments on this.
There was a lot of issues when these condos were built. Some of these were built in the most underhanded ways by some underhanded contractors that are long gone and you'll probably never find them. That's why all these condos need to be studied. But the problem was when the state of Florida decided to pull the string from the yarn ball and say, fix it, they didn't realize that real estate is like a game of dominoes. And when you push one, a lot of things start to happen. So you had a lot of HOA, had a lot of condo association board members that didn't know what they were doing. They didn't keep good books. They didn't assess. They didn't do maintenance studies. They didn't do maintenance like they were supposed to do. And all of a sudden, it's time to pay the piper.
I was actually working from home and one of my neighbors texted me and was like, did you get the email? Is this a joke?
Unfortunately, it was not a joke.
Separated already.
That's an engineer named Gustavo Alvarez with a company called AB Plus, literally able to pull the foundations of the buildings apart with his bare hands. In the videos, you see Alvarez do the same thing, time after time after time, under all 3 buildings here at Villa del Sol. This is last Thursday. Alvarez immediately called St. Lucie County officials. He then followed up with an email letting them know he believed these buildings were dangerous for anyone to be in. Here's a portion of that email. In my professional opinion,
people are looking up and their HOA dues are going through the roof, their condo dues are going through the roof, their assessments are coming out of nowhere for $100,000, $200,000. I've seen 2 people recently get a 6-figure assessment. I was in a meeting the other day listening to some of the assessments on some of the buildings that were being sold, some of the condos are being sold, and like 50% of them in that building were getting a 6-figure assessment. Now, where do you think this money is going to come from? For some people, they're on a fixed income and they're just trying to get by. And they're saying, I'm going to have to take out another mortgage on my condo to pay for these assessments. I'm going to tap the equity in my condo to pay for the assessment. Now let's think about that. One, you have to make sure that you're not tied up in litigation and they'll actually give you a loan on the property. Some of these assessments are due before closing, so you can't even sell your way out of it. Some people are just going to give them up and say foreclose on me. And when 80% of the properties in the state of, or the condos in the state of Florida are 30 years old or older, or within 1 mile of the water, 25 years older, this is a major problem. Like, this could get to the level of a major congressional problem. And most of these congressmen, these senators, these state senators, representatives, they're like, I'm not going to touch it until after elections. Get it? Politics comes in, election season comes in, maybe they'll talk to you, maybe they won't. Meanwhile, the people, the citizens, have a real issue. People bought some of these condos and they didn't ask the right questions, because when you buy a condo, you marry the condo association. Are they fully funded? Do they have historical data? Are they backed up by some good bookkeeping? Do you know like what you're getting into? And if you don't have a good agent or a good lawyer that looked into this for you, and you might be standing there saying, oh, now I've got to pay this assessment, or they'll just foreclose on me.
Of these key members has been severely compromised, evidenced by the loss of concrete and steel cross-section and visible signs of structural distress. Given the severity of these conditions, I strongly recommend the immediate evacuation. There are 36 units total in these 3 buildings.
What I detailed in my last video is you're going to see one of the greatest land grabs of all times with this stuff, where these large holding companies will come in, they'll do a hostile takeover of these condos, they will grab these condos, and since they're falling down, they'll crush them. It's all about the land underneath it, and they will just build them back 5 times as big. And they have set up legislation for this. I've talked about this endlessly in my other videos. Go watch those, about how they're going to do this. And it's crazy that nobody is really talking about this. None of the big media is talking about it. You know why? Because they told them not to.
It's new. I don't know. I never heard of it before.
John Cleary used to head a condo association. Do the people in the building you represent know what a SERS is?
Not at all.
And if it wasn't for people like me, YouTubers, social influencers, that are able to go out and speak, you wouldn't get this information. You would just be getting an assessment handed down to you, or your family member would be staring at a major problem.
Now, in that email to St. Lucie County building official Mike Jerharian and sent along to the county fire marshal, the engineer wrote the inspection found more damage than initially observed, adding sections of rebar were disintegrating, and concluding, given the severity of these conditions, I strongly recommend the immediate evacuation of residents from 2 buildings.
Now, what about these people that are in these situations that don't have anywhere to go, and they're still paying a mortgage payment on this, insurance, etc., and they're living in a hotel room that the condo association put them up in? And do they know how long they'll be there? No, because here's what's going to happen also. One, they're going to get these SERS studies back, and they're going to see this laundry list of problems. It's going to be up to the condo association and their great ability to understand how contractors work to fix these problems. Okay, we got a major structural problem. How long is that going to take? They're going to have to try to bid this out to 4 or 5 different places. Engineers are not going to move very fast. It's going to take them years to fix some of these big structures. Meanwhile, if they're unsafe, what if it comes back a little bit over the top? Where are these people going to live? They're going to live out of a hotel room for the next 2 or 3 years? How does that work? Is there insurance to cover this stuff? And I'm willing to bet if you dove through some of these documents in some of these buildings, they haven't figured any of this out. I bet you some of them have not even thought that maybe the overage on some of this is going to be 30–40%. And I always say there's a rabbit hole on all these real estate inquiries. Think about it. PVC pipe only lasts so long. That's your plumbing, okay? PEX, copper, all these different aspects only last so long. Concrete only lasts so long. Roofs only last so long. It goes down the rabbit hole from there. Everything is more expensive now to fix it than it was 2 or 3 years ago. Even to get a contractor to show up and even for him to do the workers' comp or the insurance on his workers has gone up. So every day that it gets kicked down the road, the expenses go up on that property. You know, since 30 years ago and today, the code has changed so much on everything. The code for concrete, the code for wind mitigation, the codes for roof, the codes for electrical, the codes for everything. And when you start opening up that can of worms, it is going to be way above and beyond what the cost was at the beginning. And it's going to be very interesting to see how they solve this problem. I think it's going to take a lot of, bigger heads to think about this, and it's going to take a very long time. You're going to see so many buildings just getting crushed because they're not going to be worth the fix. They're not going to be worth going in and doing what it takes on some of these old structures, especially if there's a lot of wood involved in these. And as you see in some of these properties near the water, which everything near the water breaks down exponentially faster. If there's a lot of old wood, old staircases, old wood siding, like anything to do with that, not to mention if there's any termite damage. And I've just been referring to only concrete structures. When you start talking about some of these old wooden ones, those are always riddled with massive assessments. And when these studies go into those, it's going to be crazy. Do you think that some of these pilings, these wooden pilings, are going to be good after 30 years? Comment down below on what you think about this. Let me know. If you know anything somebody else needs to know, comment down below. Have some Discord in the bottom. Argue with me. Argue with everybody. I want to see what y'all are thinking because I've been learning from the comment section because everybody's experiencing this and we're experiencing all over the state. People are experiencing this all over the country because as you see in this video, I also included one from, I think, California.
To move out of their apartments or their short-term rentals because of a landslide on some beachside properties here in San Clemente, and some of it, the Orange County Fire Authority showed up here, put their drone up, and you could actually see the landslide still happening. Take a look. This is video from the Orange County Fire Authority drone. You can see as they were overhead after the evacuations, just getting some video of the situation, the land was still sliding underneath these properties. Now this is on Buena Vista. As I said, these are some oceanside properties, most of them multi-unit properties from what we understand. The main home where this happened, where you can see in a moment, there's a swimming pool that basically got spared. All the land behind the swimming pool went crashing down towards the beach. The swimming pool still standing last we saw. Well, that unit there where this all started, we're told it's a short-term rental place. We talked to the owners. They say they use it for short-term rentals. They did have one permanent resident, but that permanent resident was on the way about to move out. And then because of what happened on that property, the
entire side of the building started falling off. The dirt was literally falling off the side of the cliff and off the side of the building. And this was a massive structure. So if it happened in Florida, which was built on a swamp, if you don't think in California where it's built on a cliff, we're not going to see these problems, it's going to happen. You're going to see it all the way up the coast of the United States. And if you live on any waterway, insurance companies are going to come after your buildings. They're just going to say, I'm not going to take the risk of it collapsing when you're built on the side of a cliff or you're built on the side of a waterway. You need to go and do these studies, and it's going to take a long time, and these studies cost a lot of money. So let me know down in the comment below what you think and where we should go from here. One more thing I want to add about this is really going to call in the question of the seller's disclosures from the previous sales. Did these people know that these repairs were coming up or there was these problems, and were they some official on the board that didn't do their duty and they just kicked it down the road until after they sold and let it be the next guy's problem? And I think you're going to find out that's what happened with a lot of these repairs. They didn't do their own assessments because they knew they were going to sell, or they were just saying, you know what, nobody's going to pay attention to that until now it's time to pay the piper, and there's going to be some really mad people. And there's going to be some really big lawyers going in and figuring out who's to work on this, who actually was the guy that set this whole domino thing in motion. And that's going to be very interesting to read about. Also didn't mention hurricane damage, which has happened to all of these buildings. The erosion underneath the parking lots and the erosion underneath the pilings. It is wild to think the amount of water that came down during Sally and Ivan, that it didn't hurt anything underneath the ground. You ever gone and looked at like a roadway? Well, like Fort Pickens is a good example when the roadway wound up in the bay. But when you look at some of these concrete, you know, roadways, underneath them are like voids from the sand and the dirt washing out from underneath all of these roadways, parking lots, pilings, like things that you can't even see that are underneath the concrete until one day they just open up, like this one in California. This is all very interesting. It is unfolding by the minute. I don't want you to think that I think this is funny. This is not funny. This is serious. And I want everybody else to know this is serious too, and you need to be aware of these things in real estate. And as a real estate agent, I'm trying to help you, advise, and if you need a real estate agent, my email is down below. On the Gulf Coast of Florida, Alabama. I'd be happy to help you, and if I can't, I'll find somebody that will. So I'll see you guys in the next video. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and on to the next one.